Michael, have you seen this clip of Richard Spencer on?
No, I have not.
This is interesting. So Richard Spencer was interviewed on Channel 2 News with Donnie Kushmaro. It's Israeli news. And it's interesting because, one, you get to see how Richard Spencer wants to portray this movement of fascism. And we should note that Bibi Netanyahu's son said that the left is far more dangerous than these fascists. But here's Richard Spencer equating his fascism with Zionism. And it's an interesting analog. Here we go.
You know that you're speaking now with a Jewish journalist. Most of our viewers are Jews. How should I feel?
As an Israeli citizen, someone who understands your identity, who has a sense of nationhood and peoplehood and the history and of an experience of the Jewish people, you should respect someone like me who has analogous feelings about whites. I mean, you could say that I am a white Zionist in the sense that I care about my people. I want us to have a secure homeland that's for us and ourselves, just like you want a secure homeland in Israel.
I mean, I think it's a little bit facile. There's perhaps some element of analogy there, although I would say that the impetus for a Jewish homeland came from basically at the hands of an ideology that Spencer is espousing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously at its base, it's incredibly offensive that Israel is founded in light of the Holocaust, which Spencer is totally in line in, and we shouldn't be shy about saying it. And at the same time, Israel's an apartheid state today, and it tracks with that sort of politics. That's also reality.
Yeah, that is the problem, is that they have, since their founding, or since I would say probably closer to the past 30 some odd years, begun to, I mean, maybe there's an argument that it naturally would result in this, but I don't think it had to, where they are denying a huge percentage of not their citizens, but the people they control, rights as citizens in their country. That's very problematic. And they're doing it in the name of national security. And it certainly makes it too easy for someone like Richard Spencer to make that analogy.
And when you get into Gaza, and I mean, a whole other dimension of keeping it on a diet, according to one Israeli general. I mean, and there's also a longer history of the neo-fascist parties in Europe drawing connections with at the very least the right in Israel. And if we're being real, I mean, the left is totally marginal. I mean, the only party that operates at all in Israel in the quasi-mainstream, and they're still pretty marginal, that we would recognize as like liberal, is Meretz. Labor, and that is not. It's center-right, and everything else is hard-right. And many of Bibi's cabinet referred to the right of him.
I'd be curious as to how that interview played in Israel.
I think there's clearly a contingent now in Israel that doesn't have a
because
problem. They don't see themselves as liberal internationalists who want to protect the Jewish identity. They see themselves as ethno-nationalists, more in line with what he's talking about.
Right. It's a problem. It's a real problem. It's a problem both in terms of how it reflects on Israel, and it's also a problem to see that guy. I mean, as he goes on after that, he poo-poos conservatives and really wants to project a sort of a professionalism and a reasonableness. I should add that the United States was not founded as a white country.
No, it was not.
And I would also add that to the extent that there's a significant number of African Americans in this country, not necessarily their choice.
Right. From the founding, we commit genocide to get the place to begin with,
Right.
and then import slave labor.
And, I mean, to be fair, in terms of the analogy, you had to, at the very least...
There was a cleansing of Palestinians in
yes.
the late 40s. There's no doubt. That's objective history.
Also, just as an aside, the lumping white people together and in this country and saying that they all have a similar, like genetic heritage is preposterous.
That is also ridiculous. In fact, I've got a couple of suggestions for guests to talk about these sort of the development of the white race, as it were. Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos